Extraordinary millionaire stumbles upon shocking secret after following her black nanny home. The unraveling begins. Claire Thornton couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness that clung to her like a shadow. It was a glamorous evening, full of laughter, sparkling gowns, and the thrilling buzz of high-stakes conversation. She smiled graciously for the cameras, but inside she felt hollow. As she left the gala, her mind buzzed with anxiety, swirling with thoughts that gnawed at her conscience. Navigating through the lavish streets, she accidentally found herself trailing behind her beloved nanny, May, unwittingly drawn to the unfamiliarity of her world. Initially, Claire's admiration for May's nurturing spirit blinded her to the stark divide that separated their lives. As they walked past the manicured lawns and opulent homes, Claire's heart raced. Here was May, a devoted single mother, who infused warmth into Claire's sterile existence. But as they meandered into May's neighborhood, Claire sensed an unsettling contrast. The homes were worn but vibrant, each echoing laughter that felt so distant from her own life. She watched May greet neighbors with genuine affection, their relationships woven through shared struggles and collective joy. Suddenly, an ache of nostalgia surged within her. The summers spent with her grandmother flooded back, a stark reminder of childhood gatherings filled with love that felt effortlessly unconditional. Now, that warmth felt like a phantom, lost somewhere in Claire's relentless pursuit of success. Entering May's house, Claire's heart sank further. The clutter spoke of a life stretched thin, burdened by bills and responsibilities. May's daughter, a bright young girl with dreams far too large for her circumstances, sat hunched over battered textbooks, shadows of neglect looming over her potential. Claire felt a swell of pity and anger bubble inside her. How many talented children would never be seen? Caught in the conflict, Claire's privilege clashed painfully with the reality before her. The cuts in May's life exposed the fragility of a system that limits opportunity, igniting a fire within her. It was tempting to turn away, to retreat to her high-rise office filled with accolades and corporate charm. But May's strength, the fierce spirit of resilience, ignited in Claire a commitment to help, to create scholarship funds that could change lives like May's daughter's. Yet whispers of doubt crept into her thoughts. Who was she to impose her wealth on others? Would May see her as just another elite seeking to ease their conscience? The stakes became unbearable as the corporate world she thrived in began to push back against her philanthropic ambitions, inciting fierce backlash. Would Claire abandon her mission in the face of adversity, giving in to the pressure to conform, or could she challenge it? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire stared at her reflection in the glass of her office, encapsulating the gritty struggle between her success and the emptiness that lingered. The pressure to maintain her lifestyle and the determination to unlock the potential of May's daughter twisted her stomach. The anguish mounted as she prepared for a public presentation to unveil her vision for educational equality. Could she stand firm in her resolve, or would she falter back into the comforting arms of her privilege? The thought of failure felt suffocating, brewing a storm of doubt on the horizon. Would she redefine her legacy, or would she remain shackled to the very privilege that suffocated her? The day of the presentation arrived, and Claire stood before the polished oak podium in a vast conference room filled with industry heavyweights. They sat in their sharply tailored suits, their faces betraying little of what they thought of her ideas. With each nervous flutter in her stomach, the stakes felt impossibly high. It wasn't just her career on the line, it was a profound commitment she now recognized as necessary. As the lights dimmed and the projector flickered to life, Claire felt a momentary rush of adrenaline. She was about to share the dreams that had ignited in her after witnessing the struggles of May and her daughter. But with every factual statistic and heart-wrenching story she delivered, doubt clung to her like an unwanted guest. Would they listen? Or would they dismiss her as merely another misguided rich woman trying to buy her way into redemption? Imagine a world where education isn't a privilege, but a right, she began, forcing her voice steady even as the tremor of uncertainty rode her words. Data poured forth from her slides, a tapestry spun from the urgent need for change. She recounted May's daughter, weaving her narrative into a larger call for equality, each detail sharper than the last. Yet, as she spoke, a part of her recoiled at the implications of her own privilege. With every compelling statistic, there was a whisper suggesting she was not truly one with the very people she sought to uplift. As she outlined her vision for a scholarship fund, the sharpness of corporate enthusiasm struck her. Adrian, a senior executive she had long respected, raised his hand. The room shifted, anticipation palpable. "It's a noble cause, Claire," he began, eyes piercing through her facade. "But the market trends are going to push our initiatives in another direction. Your efforts might best serve as an accessory to our main strategies, don't you think?" Her heart raced. It was a familiar critique that echoed through the boardroom halls, the perfunctory nod to social responsibility carefully layered over profit margins. But was that enough? Could she reframe her mission, somehow infusing real meaning into the corporate machinery without drowning in its demands? "Maybe," she replied, fighting back the initial sting of his words. "But those statistics you dismiss represent lives. If we see them only as data points, are we not complicit in perpetuating the status quo?" A moment of silence followed her challenge, sharp, electric. Claire sensed the judgment from her peers was shifting, a mixture of admiration and bewilderment rippling through the audience. Had she gone too far, or had she finally found her voice? It hit her then, this was a crucial turning point. The choice between conformity and authenticity loomed ahead, overshadowing her professional aspirations. A part of her yearned to align with industry norms, yet another part bristled against the constraints. What if she embraced this conflict rather than shying away from it? Determined, Claire stepped forward, anchoring herself on the podium with newfound resolve. "I refuse to settle for philanthropy that simply soothes the conscience. My vision compels us to confront the barriers many children face, not as a footnote in our balance sheets, but as a core element of our business practices." As her voice gained strength, she could see some faces shift, intrigued. Yet behind the spark of hope was a nagging doubt: how could she ensure those ambitions survived the inevitable pushback from her peers? As the presentation concluded, an unsettling mix of excitement and fear enveloped her. Would her peers rally behind her vision, or would she face a wall of resistance that jeopardized everything? The murmuring began, a cacophony of opinions, and Claire's breath caught in her throat. Outside the walls of this conference room, her world was poised for change. But in that moment, the real challenge wasn't just about launching a scholarship, it was about rediscovering her place within this complex, daunting landscape of privilege and purpose. What would it take to turn the tide in her favor? The true test was on the horizon, and Claire knew she needed to prepare for a fight that would define her life and the lives of so many others. As Claire left the conference room, the weight of her presentation lingered in the air. Each step felt heavy under the scrutiny of her peers, and doubt gnawed at her confidence. The faces of the executives, once a sea of neutrality, now swam in her mind, Adrian's reaction especially, a blend of skepticism and begrudging respect. She found herself replaying the moment every few seconds, each iteration sharpening her resolve but deepening her uncertainty. In the quiet of her office, Claire sank into her chair, exhaling deeply. She could still hear the murmurings of the room, the divided opinions swirling around her proposal. Did she have the strength to carve out this new path amidst the entrenched corporate structure? She turned on her computer and stared at the blinking cursor on a blank document, hesitating to translate her thoughts into action. The discomfort of her privilege gnawed at her insides. She thought again of May and her daughter, their struggles now intertwined with her life in a way she could never have anticipated. They were not mere subjects of a story, they were a stark reminder of the stakes she was playing with. Yet here she was, cloistered in an office that felt worlds apart from the realities she sought to address. The internal conflict spiraled as she considered her next steps. Should she refine her proposal further and seek allies among the executives who might sympathize with her vision? Or was there a more direct approach she could take, a way to challenge the very framework that sought to dismiss her ideas? This question lingered, a siren call urging her toward confrontation. Claire's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp rapping at her office door. It was Mia, the young intern who had shown an impressive understanding of the company's culture and the challenges that lay within it. "Hey, Claire. Can I come in? I overheard some things during the meeting." Her voice trailed off, the concern evident. "Of course, Mia. What did you hear?" Claire gestured toward the chair across from her, an instinct awakening in her that told her Mia might hold crucial insights. Mia took a seat, hesitating as she searched for words. "I just wanted to say, I think what you proposed was really brave. But I also know how deep-rooted the mindset is here. I've seen it. Sometimes it feels hopeless." The sincerity in her voice touched Claire, sending a small ripple of connection between mentor and mentee. "That's the thing, I can't let the hopelessness win, can I? We have to challenge it," Claire responded, her voice firming as she spoke. "But I'm also grappling with the pushback I might face. It's one thing to be bold in theory, but in practice." She paused, weighing her next words carefully. "In practice, it feels like a battleground." Mia leaned forward, her face serious now. "But you have the support of people who believe in you, Claire. You just need to find them. Maybe we can create a coalition, gather voices from different departments. If we can show how this mission aligns with our values and goals, it could push through the resistance." Claire's pulse quickened at the idea. A coalition, a group of allies committed to change. It was a strategy that could turn her uncertainty into collective strength, potentially transforming the corporate landscape she had been so terrified to engage with. "Let's do it," Claire said, excitement surging through her like a shot of adrenaline. "Let's gather ideas in a way that speaks to our mission and also to those who think it's just an accessory. Maybe we can reframe the narrative." An almost giddy sense of purpose filled her, feeling for the first time that the fight wasn't just hers alone but one shared by a series of allies yet unseen. As she began outlining a plan with Mia, an idea began to gestate, one that combined both confrontation and collaboration. But amid that excitement, Claire couldn't shake a troubling thought. What if her allies were not truly aligned with her vision? What if they had their hidden agendas? Claire paused, the reality of her newfound plan settling like a weight on her shoulders. In the world of corporate pretense, the line between ally and adversary could easily blur. The moment of truth had arrived. Confrontation loomed just beyond the horizon, and Claire knew that discernment would be as essential as determination. Would she have the wisdom to navigate these murky waters? With plans taking shape, she was on the cusp of where it all could either flourish or falter. How could she gather the right allies and fortify her vision against inevitable betrayal? The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet Claire felt a flicker of hope ignite in her heart. And so, she prepared, ready to face the most challenging moments of her life, knowing the decision to act was just the beginning. Claire leaned forward over her desk, her fingers poised above the keyboard, but she hesitated. The excitement of forming a coalition coursed through her veins, yet her heart felt as heavy as before. A coalition required trust, a currency she wasn't sure was in abundance around her. "Okay," she said, finally breaking the silence. "Let's start mapping out who we can approach." But even as she spoke, another thought intruded: would any of them be the kind of bold thinkers she needed? Mia pulled out a notepad, her eyes bright with anticipation. "We could start with those who seemed interested during the presentation. I saw a few nodding when you mentioned the changes that needed to happen." "Yes, but we also have to make sure they're not just pretending to be on board. I need to identify their real motivations. That'll be the key." The thought stung. Could she trust her own judgment? Each name she considered came with the risk of betrayal. The corporate game was complex, and she had already witnessed how ambition could corrupt even the most well-intentioned colleagues. Hours passed in a whirl of strategic planning, their conversations shifting from tentative ideas to concrete proposals. In her gut, however, Claire felt a niggling fear. Each plan solidified and expanded her vision, and yet, it also revealed the stark vulnerability of her position. As they worked, Claire reflected on her identity within this corporate labyrinth. The job title Senior Project Manager had once felt empowering. Now, it felt both a privilege and a burden, weighted with expectations she feared she could not meet. She was determined to ignite change, but was she prepared for the toll it would take? "Hey, Claire." Mia's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "You seem a bit distant. Are you all right?" Claire offered a weak smile. "Just thinking about the logistics. It's easy to get lost in the details," she replied, her voice steadier now, perhaps a little too steady. "Maybe you should take a moment to reconnect with why you're doing this," Mia suggested, leaning back with a look of concern. "We need you energized, not just to go through the motions." That simple suggestion struck a chord deep within Claire. She closed her eyes briefly, visualizing May and her daughter once more, the challenges that defined their lives. She wanted to fight for them, to dismantle the barriers standing in their way. But something deep within her bristled at the fear of failure, especially when the risks seemed sharper now than ever. "Let's put together a pitch for our coalition," she finally decided, a newfound air of determination settling around her. "Not just about the proposal, but about creating a movement." "Absolutely." Mia's enthusiasm was infectious. Claire felt the energy shift as they both pored over ideas, structuring a language that resonated with the company's core values while threading in their vision for broader change. But as they wrote, Claire was acutely aware of the stakes, feeling the weight of her vulnerability hanging heavy on every word they typed. She recalled Adrian's skepticism during the meeting, felt it creep back into her consciousness. Would he dismiss their coalition as yet another fleeting initiative? Would he actively work to undermine their efforts? The tension ratcheted up, compelling her to action. Now was not the time for self-doubt. But within her burgeoning confidence lay a fear growing ever larger. How would she confront Adrian if he decided to wield his influence against her? The next few days would bring a flurry of meetings, to gather support, to validate her ideas, each marked with the potential of collapse or triumph. Was she truly ready to face Adrian? As the deadline for her coalition proposal loomed, she felt the pressure to act amplify with each tick of the clock. Claire took a deep breath, envisioning the transformative power of their coalition, yet wary of the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Would her dream of collaboration withstand the harsh scrutiny of the corporate world? And so, she stood at the precipice of a decision. Knowing she had to bite the bullet. The taste of risk mingled with her resolve. It was time to confront those who distrusted her vision as well as those whose allegiance remained uncertain. The coalitions she sought could either herald a new era of engagement or become the very weapon that could sever her path. Would she have the courage to weather the storms ahead, or would she find herself shipwrecked? As the door to her destiny beckoned, Claire knew she was about to enter a phase of her journey rife with confrontation. She just hoped the power of her allies would see her through. Claire's heart raced as she entered the conference room, each step echoing with the weight of her mission. A rectangular table loomed before her, flanked by familiar faces, each representing a piece of the corporate puzzle she was desperate to assemble. The scarlet and gold of the company's emblem mocked her aspirations, displays of confidence that felt like a facade she struggled to maintain. She cleared her throat, the sound slicing through the ambient chatter. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for gathering on such short notice." The words came out steadier than she felt. Adrian lounged at the far end of the table, his arms crossed, an inscrutable expression shading his features. Knowing he would lead the charge against her ideas made the room feel stifling. But the flicker of her resolve ignited. If she was to fight for change, she couldn't shrink back now. As she presented the initial framework for the coalition, Claire watched the reactions in real time. A few nods, moments of hesitation. Were they intrigued or simply being polite? She pushed her nervousness aside. Each detail she provided bore her vision to elevate not just the workplace, but to dismantle the walls holding back potential. While I appreciate your enthusiasm, Claire, Adrian interjected, his tone dripping with skepticism, I wonder if this initiative is more grounded in idealism than practicality. Are we ready for the ripple effects this could create? His words struck like a jarring alarm, forcing Claire to grapple with the notion that he might be right. The specter of doubt crept closer, but she knew deep down that idealism was the necessary fuel for transformation. Adrian, I believe that inaction is more perilous than the attempts we make. Yes, it will be challenging, but the risk of stagnation is far greater. The room fell silent, the weight of her statement hanging in the air. Claire could feel the glances shifting, weighing her confidence against Adrian's established authority. If I may, chimed in Aaron, a senior HR manager, her tone supportive. This could actually improve employee morale and, in turn, performance metrics. Engagement is key right now. Encouraged by Aaron's backing, Claire pressed on. Exactly. We're not just attempting to implement change for change's sake. This is about building a culture of transparency and growth. Each word filtered through her mind, transforming into an affirmation, a battle cry for her own self-worth in this arena. Though applause wasn't forthcoming, Claire discerned a flicker of interest. Slowly, the faces around the table appeared less rigid, contemplating the implication of her vision. The shadow of Adrian's influence seemed to waver, if only slightly. Let us consider forming a subgroup to evaluate feasibility, shall we? Aaron proposed, her fingers steepled thoughtfully. Claire's heart raced at the prospect, a glimmer of hope that they might explore the possibility together. As they deliberated, Claire recognized something within herself shifting. This wasn't simply about creating coalitions, it was a breakthrough of her own potential and the courage to speak her truth. The realization blossomed as she embraced the discomfort of challenge, a potent ingredient for growth, both professionally and personally. But beneath this newfound courage loomed the reality that, despite allyship, the struggle with Adrian was far from over. The murmurs of doubt he planted before still lingered like a dark cloud in her mind. Would this newfound momentum culminate in her favor, or would Adrian's resistance amplify, seeking to bury her aspirations yet again? As discussions wrapped up with a tentative commitment to explore the coalition, Claire felt the adrenaline coursing through her, igniting determination. She was ready for the next steps. The challenge that lay ahead demanded her sharpest strategizing, and she felt resolute. As she left the conference room, propelled by a flickering sense of purpose, Claire knew she would need to delve deeper into her own motivations, the core of why she was so passionately committed to this battle. What lay in the recesses of her mind might hold the key to overcoming both external and internal adversaries. Soon she found herself in front of her desk, staring at a blank document, her heart pounding. It was time to dig deeper, to understand not just what she wanted to achieve but also what parts of herself she had yet to confront. Would the exploration yield insights that would make her stronger, or would it expose vulnerabilities that might prove to be her undoing? In this urgent quest for clarity, Claire felt the weight of her next decision pressing down on her, one that could define her future amidst the shadows of uncertainty. Claire's fingers hovered over the keyboard, poised yet hesitant, as she contemplated the daunting task of translating her nebulous feelings into clear words. The blank document was not merely a canvas for ideas, it was an abyss, reflecting her uncertainty and latent fears. Each keystroke felt monumental, a step into the unknown terrain of her own psyche. She shut her eyes momentarily, pulling her thoughts inward. What ignited this fire within her? It wasn't just the drive for success or the desire to build an impactful coalition, it was a thirst for transformation, a response to years of being confined by expectations, both imposed and self-created. Was she ready to confront the insecurities that had lingered all these years? The weight of inadequacy pressed on her chest as she recalled the times when she had retreated in the face of adversity, opting for silence rather than asserting herself. Adrian's skepticism echoed in her mind. Had she truly been retaining a fragment of that timid girl, the one who second-guessed herself at every turn? Claire opened her eyes, glancing at the scattered reports and performance metrics on her desk. This data was her arsenal and her vulnerability, revealing not only the company's potential but also her own. "I want more than this. I deserve more than this," she murmured, the words shocking her as they left her lips. Realizing that confronting her past wasn't enough, she began organizing her thoughts into a structured plan. She would outline her vision for the coalition and, more importantly, the underlying motivations that propelled her. The initiative wasn't solely a professional endeavor, it was a deeply personal mission fueled by a desire to create a culture where every voice mattered. This time, her purpose was unwavering, and her stance would be decisive. She drafted her ideas with nearly frenzied energy, intertwining dreams with actionable steps. Each section of her outline where she articulated the need for growth, mentorship, and honesty became a reflection of her own journey. Bit by bit, Claire unearthed not only her aspirations but also the raw vulnerabilities she had kept wrapped tightly for too long. Recognizing her fears allowed her to confront them. She could either let them extinguish her drive or equip her with resilience. As the sun set outside her office window, she felt a surge of clarity. There was power in vulnerability, she realized. It wasn't a sign of weakness but a call to authenticity, a bridge connecting her to others who might feel the same fears and ambitions. That revelation marked a turning point. It felt liberating to embrace her story as a source of strength rather than a chain. Inspired, Claire shifted her focus. The next step required bravery, an overt acknowledgement of past limitations to build bridges toward future independence. The idea of confronting Adrian directly loomed large in her mind. If she was to truly champion this coalition, she would need to stand firm against his critiques and assert her position with unwavering confidence. With renewed determination, she resolved to prepare for the inevitable clashes with Adrian. Perhaps he, too, could see the potential in her vision if she articulated it with unwavering clarity and conviction. Claire leaned back in her chair, allowing herself a moment to breathe. She had embarked on a transformative journey where confronting the multifaceted layers of her identity could not only empower her but also inspire others to join her cause. Suddenly, her phone pinged, interrupting her thoughts. It was an email notification, a scheduled follow-up with Adrian. The message felt like a hidden interrogation, urging her to step out from behind her self-imposed walls. The time for the confrontation was upon her. Could she solidify her resolve to face him one-on-one, unearth her deepest motivations, and challenge him with the same passion she had newly discovered within? The weight of the next confrontation pressed heavily against her heart as she clicked on the notification, a sense of urgency filling the air. Would she be ready to engage him with the clarity she had just unearthed, or would old doubts flood back in, threatening to drown her ambitions once again? The room felt stifling as Claire's anticipation mounted. Staring at the screen, she took a moment to breathe deeply, trying to summon the courage she had recently discovered. The upcoming meeting with Adrian represented more than a dialogue, it was a battleground upon which she would either reclaim her agency or allow her doubts to overwhelm her. With each passing second, her heart raced not with fear, but with the thrill of potential. This could be the pivotal moment she had yearned for, the moment she transformed from the shadow of timidness into a figure of assertiveness. She adjusted her posture, straightening her back as if to physically embody her growing resolve. This was not just about the coalition, it was about articulating her identity, her power, for the first time. Claire opened the documents on her desk, reviewing her outline once again. She meticulously highlighted key points: why a robust support network was essential, how mentorship could enhance career trajectories, and the value of promoting open dialogue in the workplace. What struck her most was how these objectives echoed her personal struggles, not merely abstract business concepts but reflections of her transformation. Tackling each point became increasingly personal, a litany of the fears she was choosing to confront openly instead of hiding behind. As she stared, the cursor blinked incessantly, reminding her that this was not merely theoretical. This mattered. But deeper than that, it had become a map of her newfound convictions, the beliefs she refused to relinquish. This wasn't a presentation to just defend an idea, each word she chose represented her evolution, her belief in every individual's intrinsic worth. She needed to prepare for Adrian's challenges, not with defensiveness but with a proactive humility. Claire recognized that listening could be just as powerful as asserting herself. What if she flipped the conversation? If she approached him with questions instead of declarations, could she invite him to reconsider his stance? Perhaps by framing her dreams as opportunities for collaboration, she could breach the fortress of his skepticism. As the scheduled time drew closer, she felt a tightening knot in her stomach, a blend of anxiety and eagerness. Claire was about to enter a dialectical arena, where professional ambition and personal identity clashed and intertwined. The enormity of the challenge loomed behind her dual motivation to improve her professional environment and to step into her authentic self. What if she stumbled? What if he dismissed her passions? The questions flickered through her mind, dizzying but invigorating. She opened her mouth, rehearsing the opening lines in her thoughts. "Adrian, I appreciate your feedback," she would state, infusing sincerity into the words. Then a follow-up query: "Can we discuss how we can build an environment that values both results and the contributions of every team member?" This approach could draw him in, helping him see the importance of a culture where inclusivity thrived alongside productivity. Claire's thoughts raced as she attempted to quell her apprehensions. This conversation was not solely about convincing Adrian, it was about redefining her narrative. If she could project confidence, reduce defensiveness, and open the floor for exploration, perhaps she could sway him toward her vision, even just a little. Would he be receptive or resistant? As she pressed her palms against her thighs to calm the tremor of nerves, her phone buzzed. It was time. The meeting room loomed in her mind, a stark contrast to the private barriers she had long entrenched herself behind. She had done the work, honed her message, and drawn a map through her fears. With every thud of her heart, she felt a shift, one from hesitation to ownership of her voice. Could this pivotal moment redefine not just her professional relationship with Adrian but also the very framework of her beliefs? As she stood, taking a steadying breath, the weight of her apprehension hung palpably in the air. She stepped out of her office. Walking towards the conference room where the confrontation awaited, a piece of her destiny unfurling just ahead. What surprising truths or hidden vulnerabilities would arise when she faced Adrian? Would his opinions shift, or would they catalyze a deeper understanding between them altogether? Claire stood outside the conference room, her breath shallow as she absorbed the muted hum of voices inside. The air felt thicker, each sound amplified by the gravity of what lay ahead. In that moment, she recognized that whether she succeeded or faltered, she was on the brink of a transformation far beyond the confines of the meeting. Gathering herself, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned toward her. Adrian was seated at the far end, his expression a blend of curiosity and skepticism. This was the arena she had envisioned. She was poised, ready to claim her voice among the cacophony, and yet, uncertainty clawed at the edges of her confidence. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I appreciate the opportunity to share my vision for a more collaborative workspace." Claire could feel the weight of their gazes, especially Adrian's, and with each word, she felt the power of her own intention. As she unfolded her points on the importance of supportive networks and mentorship, she noticed Adrian interjecting with counterarguments, his tone refusing to soften. "Claire, while I can appreciate the sentiment, results are what ultimately drive this company forward. Are we going to prioritize feelings over productivity?" A ripple of tension coursed through the room. This was the moment she had anticipated, but the sting of his words forced her to confront a familiar pattern, her urge to retreat in the face of opposition. But instead of shrinking, she stood rooted. "I believe results are fundamentally tied to the well-being of our team," Claire countered, her voice igniting with conviction. "A culture that values individual contributions fosters greater loyalty and, as a result, drives productivity. They're not mutually exclusive." With every statement, she felt her former fears dissipating, replaced by a fierce determination. She took a breath, choosing her next words carefully. She wasn't just pushing back against Adrian, she was molding the narrative of her own agency. "Let us consider this a conversation rather than a debate. What if we looked at this differently? How could we measure success by both performance and team satisfaction?" Adrian regarded her closely, and the room fell silent again, captivated by this new flavor of discussion. The shifting dynamic was palpable. She wasn't merely defending her position but inviting him into an exploration of shared goals. Interesting perspective, he finally said, his tone lightening just slightly. I can see some merit. But that requires serious commitment from all levels. His voice trailed off, as if he were contemplating uncharted territory. As the conversation developed, Claire felt a thrill course through her. Each discussion point she navigated became an affirmation of her identity as a professional willing to challenge the status quo. Questions bounced between them, a ping-pong of ideas that evolved into a collaborative brainstorm. The rigidity of Adrian's initial stance began to soften, revealing glimpses of his uncertainty. Unexpectedly, she found herself enjoying the tug-and-pull, no longer seeing him as an adversary but as a potential ally. Minutes transformed into a spirited exchange, suggestions weaving together rather than clashing. She had ignited a spark within the room, and for the first time, Claire felt the palpable energy of collaboration. Yet, as the discussion reached an apex, Adrian posed a question that struck deep: what if it doesn't work? What if we fail? Her pulse quickened. Here was the crossroads. Should she default to her old fears of failing? But something inside her shifted, urging her to embrace the possibility of risk instead. What if we redefine failure as a stepping stone? A chance to grow instead of a definitive endpoint? His gaze held steady, adopting a contemplative quality as unsaid thoughts crossed the room. They were at a precipice. The dialogue could either forge a new partnership or rattle back to resistance. She had caught the spark of something greater, and the contours of her journey were becoming clearer. Would this conversation allow her to reshape the organizational culture she so fiercely envisioned, and what would that mean for her sense of self and future decisions? As she peered into Adrian's eyes, awaiting his response, she felt the exquisite weight of anticipation. Here lay her next challenge. Would this meeting challenge the very foundations of their relationship, catalyzing a change she longed to see? Or would it reveal deeper fissures that neither of them had yet acknowledged? Claire held her breath, caught in the electrifying moment where words and thoughts swirled, battling for dominance. Adrian's brow furrowed, prompting her to pull at the threads of his curiosity, weaving her narrative tighter. The air was heavy with uncertainty, yet the tide had shifted slightly in her favor. She had to seize the moment. What if, she ventured, leaning in slightly, we framed this initiative around a trial period? A small team that embodies this collaborative spirit. We monitor both productivity and morale. It might just yield the data we need to validate these concepts substantively. Adrian's reaction was slow, considering. A flicker of respect passed through his demeanor, a tiny victory. Her heart raced, but Claire buried the instinct to gloat. She understood the fragility of this progress. Aggressiveness could easily dismantle the camaraderie built in mere seconds. Instead, she decided to hone in on the collaborative progress they'd made. As we think about this, she said, her voice warm, it's crucial to remember that change doesn't have to be disruptive. Incremental shifts can lead to profound transformations. We create a safety net by testing concepts. She could see Adrian processing this shift, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes starting to replace his skepticism. He ran a hand over his chin, his expression contemplative. Incremental. I like that. His voice took on a slightly softer register. But how will the team react to this? Will they see it as yet another change? The question jolted Claire. Would the team embrace this or resist? There was an inherent risk in bringing them along for this ride defined by their mutual ideals. She had to project confidence, not only in their proposition but also in their collective ability to adapt. We engage them, she asserted. Let us involve the team in shaping the proposal. If they feel ownership over this initiative, they're far more likely to commit. Adrian nodded thoughtfully, understanding the strategic merit behind her suggestion. His posture shifted as he leaned back in his chair, open to the idea rather than defending his territory. The remainder of the meeting flowed seamlessly, sparking endless ideas while Claire felt invigorated, fueled by potential, not fear. Far from her initial anxiety, she began to see herself wielding influence in ways she had previously only dreamed of. There was a palpable sense of alignment in the room, ideas were now shared, rather than extracted. Eventually, the discussion concluded, and Claire realized her hands had remained steady throughout. She had stepped onto a higher plane, not just surviving the encounter with Adrian but reshaping not only the dialogue but the very foundations of her confidence. Yet even as she relished her newfound strength, a creeping sense of doubt lingered, embedded in her thoughts. Was this a temporary shift, or had she genuinely begun to forge a lasting impact? As the meeting adjourned, she caught Adrian's eye. A half-smile danced on his lips, revealing a new possibility: collaboration rather than contention. Yet deep within her, a voice whispered that greater trials lay ahead. The reality of actually implementing these ideas would reveal their true fortitude. Later, as she stepped into the sunlight outside the building, Claire felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her. She was fueled by ambition, ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited. But the question nagged at her, a potent enigma: was she prepared for how the culture she sought to transform would react? It would involve more than just partnership, it would require courage to face resistance, and the fear of failure lingered ominously in the backdrop. She knew the answers she sought were just beyond the horizon, she could practically reach them. But would she? With each step, the weight of her aspirations and the shadows of doubt collided, propelling her forward but leaving her uncertain of what the next chapter would demand. Tomorrow, she mused, tomorrow might reveal everything. As dawn broke over the city, Claire gazed out her office window, the morning light cascading through the glass, illuminating a path toward what lay ahead. Yesterday's meetings had catalyzed an internal revolution within her, a shift toward authenticity and a fierce commitment to her mission. She was ready to embrace the challenges that awaited her as she sought not just to transform her workplace but the lives of those who had ignited her journey in the first place. Determined to forge on, Claire crafted a meticulously detailed roadmap for the coalition that included an agenda to present to her team. As she poured her energy into this framework, she articulated both the lofty goals and the tangible steps necessary for achieving them. Each bullet point articulated her vision for systemic change that fostered both performance and collaboration. The work ignited a fire within her, a passionate pursuit of a legacy not just built on metrics alone but rooted in community and empowerment. When the time came to present this framework to her colleagues, Claire's heart raced with an exhilarating blend of anticipation and trepidation. She stood at the front of the room, her team filling the chairs, curious glances blending with supportive nods. The shift from yesterday, where she had felt tentative at best, to today's moment, where her voice echoed with clarity and confidence, was palpable. This was the battleground where she would echo her commitment to not only advocate for change but encourage collective ownership among her peers. Today we stand at a crossroads, Claire began, her tone resolute. We face the unique opportunity to redefine what success looks like within our organization. Throughout the presentation, she wove personal anecdotes, including the urgency of May's story, ensuring her colleagues felt the weight of the initiative and the impact their commitment could have. As she spoke, the air in the room shifted, a transformative electricity pulsating through the collective energy, witnessing a unified vision take shape. When she concluded, her colleagues erupted in a mixture of applause and animated conversation. Individuals leaned in, sharing thoughts on how their unique roles could support this ambition. A synergy filled the space, showcasing a newfound alignment not only with Claire's vision but also with each other. They rallied around the idea of engaging the workforce, forming focus groups that would cultivate a safe space for dialogue and encourage team members to voice their insights and concerns proactively. This moment of culmination affirmed Claire's growth. Instead of retreating into the shadows, she had cultivated an environment where previously silenced voices flourished. The respect she earned echoed in the appreciation of her peers, authentic and sincere. As the days turned into weeks, Claire diligently nurtured the coalition, witnessing the blossoming of ideas and initiatives she once deemed impossible. Team morale surged, delighted optimism infusing the culture, indicating the resonance of her vision with everyone involved. The impact was unprecedented, productivity thrived as members recognized the intrinsic value of collaboration over mere outputs. Recognition in her field soon followed. Claire received an invitation to present her coalition model at an industry conference, where she could inspire others to prioritize inclusive workplace practices. Acceptance of this opportunity brought a deep sense of pride. She was now positioned to advocate for systemic change beyond her organization, reflecting her complete metamorphosis from uncertainty to recognized competence. Standing backstage at the conference, Claire felt the familiar flutter of nervous energy. She recalled the initial thoughts that once plagued her, the drowning anxiety of inadequacy. Yet now, she stood on the brink of accomplishment, grounded in her newfound authority. She was no longer the timid girl shrinking away from challenges, she was a force of nature, equipped with the knowledge that her voice mattered. Imagine how many lives we can touch if we make this shift, Claire proclaimed to an audience filled with fellow industry leaders, empowering them to foster cultures of inclusion within their companies. As her words reverberated through the room, she witnessed nods of recognition and flickers of understanding among her peers. Later that evening, as Claire walked towards the exit, the applause still echoed in her ears. She knew that with each step she had taken, a step fueled by vulnerability and resilience, she had redefined her legacy. She had transformed not just her environment but the essence of who she was. Looking out at the city skyline, a profound sense of fulfillment washed over her. She was no longer defined solely by her title or her past, she was a champion for change. Her achievements were now grounded in authenticity rather than solely ambition. This was only the beginning, Claire felt it within her bones. There would always be further challenges, but now she was armed with confidence and a powerful community behind her. She had found her voice, proven her worth, and in doing so, she had proven that one person could change the narrative while lighting the way for others. If you resonate with Claire's journey of transformation and seek inspiration to overcome your own challenges, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this empowering story. Comment your reactions and theories about Claire's inspiring conclusion. Let us hear your thoughts. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to witness the impact of personal growth and commitment. Together, we can cultivate a community of resilience and hope.